Not that I'm going to say that this move of head, back, hip coil is bad per se, but it does limit potential acceleration. And if we keep our head back over that back leg, then we have a harder time of controlling the center mass of our body going into front foot strike. Now remember, this isn't me saying you should change drastically right off the bat. All I'm really looking at is your anchor point and how you are potentially losing power. Anchor point is front foot strike. So when I look at front foot strike, it's only when the calf muscles activate or contract, right? So not contracted or activated yet. Boom, there they go. So that is that point of full front foot strike, okay? Now, as you see, you're getting into a pattern of early trunk rotation, because, and not even a trunk rotation in the sense of like it's early trunk rotation. It's just that you are not on time as you get into full front foot strike, to the point where you have the ability to delay that trunk even more or delay your hand even more. I know this is confusing, but this all changes when guys get on the mound, right? Guys that have the long toss numbers and the pull down numbers like you, this is where it changes, because look at your posture of your long toss. Coming down to front foot strike. Boom. Full front foot strike, and I know there are different views. Full front foot strike, hand just came up, right? So the trunk hasn't begun its rotation yet, right? But your hips are rotated. So now we create a ton of stretch. You're going to see a video in the report that talks about this. And it's what I call like the velocity enhancing move, because every single high power output pitcher in the big leagues does this extremely well. Literally timing of hand raise and anchor point into the ground. And it's happening so quickly, but essentially what they're able to do is delay that trunk from going this way, rotating, right? But keep those hips going into rotation, so you create a ton of stretch, and then all of that rotational energy that you've built up, right? So all of the rotational energy you're building is now going to be released on time and online. Whereas we're just, look at this little, it's so funny to me, because like I'm talking about it, I'm like, what? Such a little difference, right? It's one frame. So if we landed full front foot contact here, you are throwing 92, 94. But since you release a little bit of that rubber band tension that we've built up, since you've released it a little bit early, now you're pulling it only from here instead of back here. You're going to see a video on that if that's confusing. You're leaving power output on the table. Now it's like, okay, sick, dude. Well, where do I go with that? For me, I think it's always different depending on the athlete, and it sucks to say that, but it's going to be trial and error. Do we increase our forward move? Do we increase our initial momentum, which you actually do a pretty good job of? Maybe you can do more. Or now the second thing, which I think is most likely, do we get away from head, back, hip coil and remain center stacked? Okay, I'm going to pull up a video on someone I think you compare really nicely with. Okay, Clevinger. So he's a driver. He produces a ton of energy into the ground. He doesn't have a whole lot of initial momentum going forward. But watch what he does differently compared to you, where now as he starts his acceleration, right? So as he starts his drive, he does a great job of that posture of the drive leg, right? Holding that, but watch his head position. So he keeps his head in the center. So now he's increasing his acceleration rate of his body all the way into front foot strike. Boom. So at front foot strike, see how his trunk is still in and he's still intact. And now it's just release, right? Dang, that's freaking awesome, man. And I know it's frustrating, dude, because it's like, well, this move is literally happening like that, but maybe play around. And that's why I started this analysis with saying like, hey, this is an absolute, but play around with it. Play around with keeping your head in the center of your body and seeing if that will increase our acceleration rate into our anchor point, which will then better optimize that posture at full front foot strike.